Okay, so I'm going to show how to do watercolor, and we're going to do some test strips that are going to look like these when they're done. So I'm going to lay these out to show you. They will look like this when it's done, this when it's done, this, oops, there, this, and this when they're done. So we're going to do two at a time, basically working on them, and I'm going to show you the steps working up. And the reason we're doing two at a time is so that we can get kind of the base going on one, let it dry out while we're working on the other one, and then keep working through. So I'm going to do these two today, and then the other two in a future one. So the first thing that you want to do is to create a wet on wet, and remember that from the test strip that a wet on wet is wet paper. So I'm going to go ahead and take my water and just lay it on here and wet this all down. First time I'm just going to lay quite a bit of water out on there and kind of move it around now that I have the water on there. Don't overbrush. What you want to do is make sure I'm looking at it from the side so that I can tell if it's a little bit shiny. I want it shiny everywhere. If you overbrush, you end up breaking through that sizing so on the surface so that it holds the watercolor on the top, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to get my green going, and I'm going to get a little bit of blue and green going. So I'm going to start with my blue, and I'm going to lay it down here, and I'm going to let it go for a swim. And this is why the wet on wet, so that it gets a chance to fill everywhere. And I'm going to fill the whole page, even though part of it is going to be a little different as it goes. I'm going to lay in a little bit of green and let that kind of work together. Now the green I'm going to move in a little bit, or work in a little bit, because the sky doesn't usually look quite that green. So I'm going to work them together so that it gets kind of a bluish green look to it. It's a little extreme, so I'm going to throw a little more blue back in here. I'm just putting the green so it's a little closer to maybe like a nighttime kind of look. Keep these up to the side so I keep an eye on them. So I'm going to work my way across, put just a touch of green down towards the bottom here, a little bit more blue on top of it again. Alright, now you'll notice that it's kind of puddling. Now I did start by taking and taping this down. This is the cheap, easy way to stretch a paper. This is by no means the professional way to stretch a paper. The professional way is to, I'm going to get a paper towel so that I can mop up the edges. The professional way is to wet the paper down completely, soak it in water, and put it over something so that it kind of connects to it, whether it be plexiglass or something like that. And you kind of let it relax, basically, and then you connect it down. You can staple it, or you can tape it. There is paper tape that is more appropriate for it in the future if you are doing things professionally. The tape here is not acid-free, so it could break down the surface over time. But, like I said, this is the cheap, easy way to do it for school. I just want to make sure those puddles don't get too bad in there. The puddles will leave hard edges to them if you leave too many, so I'm just going to kind of dab. I'm not wiping, I'm just dabbing, and I let it kind of work its way back in again. Now, if I wanted to create some clouds, which I do, I'm going to take a wadded up paper towel, and I'm going to just kind of push down on it, let those kind of dry up, basically, wherever it's touching, and then you can get kind of that cloudy kind of look to it so that it gets a little bit of hard edges going on. So I'm going to let that one dry for a little bit, and I'm going to go to the next one. Now the next one has trees on it, and an easy way to create trees is to take tape and to actually tear the tape in half. This creates a resist, and I put the two on there just for time's sake. I'm going to put a third one on here. You should usually work in odd numbers if you possibly can, 3s or 5s. It's kind of a magic, 3 is kind of a magic number in art, so keep that in mind. So I tore down the side, or tore down the center of it, and then I put the straight sides together to create it and overlap them a little bit so that it will resist the paint. That gives kind of a natural edge to it. If we just took the piece of tape and put it down on there, we would have just a straight edge to it, so that wouldn't make any sense at all. So I'm going to tear off a few limbs for them. And the first one I'm just going to tear an edge, and then I'm going to tear again to create a couple of limbs coming up off of it. And tear a smaller limb, put that up. I'm going to keep just tearing a few times here. And I don't need a lot of limbs, but something so that it looks kind of real. I don't know if I like that one, so I'm going to pick that one up and place it down there. Now, seal your edges, which means to go around and kind of just press them in a little bit, especially on the trees, just so that the watercolor doesn't leak underneath them. And in between, it does want to go down in between, so make sure you kind of press that in also. Okay, so that looks good. Now I'm going to do a wet on wet here also. Now this one I'm going to do wet on wet everywhere, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to actually create a horizon line with this one. The difference between the two is that this one's going to get that horizon line put back in. This one is going to have kind of mountains, and then it's called washing out the feet on the bottom. So lay down the water. The first little bit is kind of wanting to soak in, so kind of double check and make sure that there is water everywhere. Again, looking just from the side. And this one I'm going to go a little lighter and a little bit more straight of blue. So to lighten it up, I'm just going to add some water up on the cover and just kind of pull across. Alright. And again, I just don't want a lot of water to sit out on the tape because it tends to come back and create a hard edge to something. So I'm just going to mop up a little bit of the stuff that comes out on the tape here. I'm going to let that kind of dry just a little bit more. If I want to, I can go with a hairdryer and dry this down a little bit. But I'm just going to let it go for now at that stage and let those dry completely before I go to the next step.